I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this, honestly. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 5 years now. We met in college, things moved pretty fast, and I genuinely thought we were solid. We got engaged, then married, and things seemed perfect, at least on the surface. She always put on this confident, bitchy attitude, which I thought was just her personality. She's smart, beautiful, really good at hiding her insecurities behind that sharp tongue. Looking back, though, I started noticing little signs that something wasn't right. She became more distant, started canceling plans last minute, and I caught her lying about where she was going sometimes. She tell me she was working late or seeing her friends, but I'd find her out, or I'd get these weird texts that didn't sit well with me. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just paranoid or insecure. She always had some excuse. "You're overthinking again," she'd say. "I'm just tired, I need space." But the biggest thing that bothered me was her sudden disinterest in us. Her saying she was tired of sex, that she wanted to focus on her career, that she was too busy to put effort into our relationship. Then came the pregnancy. She told me she was pregnant about 6 months ago, right after I got back from a week-long business trip. I was thrilled, finally, the family we talked about, a little bundle of joy. She seemed happy too, or at least she pretended to be. But I remember noticing how distant she seemed during those first few weeks. No morning sickness, no real excitement, just a lot of vague answers when I asked how she was feeling. Still, I trusted her. She was my wife, after all. But I couldn't shake this gut feeling that something was off. I kept questioning her about the pregnancy, about appointments, about the baby's name, and she'd brush me off, telling me I was just stressed out or getting anxious for no reason. She'd snap at me if I pressed too hard. I remember one night she got really bitchy, telling me I didn't understand her feelings and that I was being controlling. That was a red flag, but I didn't want to admit it then. I wanted to believe in us, in her. I wanted to believe that everything was fine, even when my instincts screamed otherwise. Then, about a week ago, I went away for work again. That's when everything started falling apart. I was gone for 5 days, and during that time, Lisa was supposed to be focusing on the pregnancy, going to her doctor's appointments and preparing for our future. But I started noticing suspicious things before I left. Her changing her phone password, hiding her messages, deleting things. I didn't think much about it then. I figured she was just stressed or maybe even hiding something because she was annoyed with me, but I wish I had dug deeper. It all came crashing down when I got back. I was exhausted, glad to be home, and I wanted to surprise her. I came into the apartment and immediately noticed her phone on the couch. It was unlocked and I couldn't resist. I peeked. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were texts, explicit photos, and a conversation with my brother, Jake. They'd been sleeping together. I couldn't believe it. My own wife lying to me about everything, cheating on me with my brother, my own flesh and blood. The worst part, the texts weren't just sex talk. They were filled with lies, promises, and some sick excuse about how she needed someone who actually understood her, and that she and Jake had been sneaking around for months. I felt like my entire world was collapsing. I remembered all the times she said she was tired, the pregnancy she faked, the plans we made, all bullshit. She'd been lying to my face every single day. I wanted to scream, to cry, to punch something, anything to release the rage boiling inside me. I was so angry, so betrayed, I didn't even know where to start. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life, was sleeping with my brother. That's where I stand now, confused, furious, and completely disillusioned with everything I thought was real. After I found out, I just stood there in the middle of the apartment, staring at her phone like it was some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My mind was racing 100 miles an hour. I kept going over every moment, every sign I missed, every lie she told me. I had this sinking feeling in my chest, like I'd been punched in the gut, then kicked in the stomach. I already knew I wouldn't be able to look at her the same way again. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd wanted to build a life with, she'd been lying, cheating, and sneaking around behind my back the entire time I was away. I didn't even have words at first. My hands were trembling and I felt like I might vomit or pass out. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but all I could see was her face. Those bitchy smirks, the way she dismissed my concerns, the way she lied so effortlessly. I couldn't believe I missed all the signs. She told me she was just tired, that she needed space, that she wasn't interested in sex anymore. Meanwhile, she was texting Jake, planning secret meetups, probably even fooling around in our bed when I was gone. The betrayal cut deep. I knew I had to confront her. I grabbed my phone, called her, and her voice instantly sounded defensive, even angry. She asked why I was calling so late, and I could hear her trying to pretend she was innocent. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the lies, her pretending to be pregnant. Her tone changed immediately. She started yelling, calling me paranoid and controlling. She said I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because she was more successful than I am. That's when she got really bitchy, throwing in some stupid remark about how I was too possessive, and she didn't owe me any explanations. I told her she was done. I said I wanted her out of the apartment and that I didn't want to see her face again until she was honest with me. But she didn't even bother denying it outright. Instead, she started crying, bitchy fake tears, trying to make me feel guilty. She told me I was overreacting, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was crazy for even suspecting her. She said she'd never cheat on me, that she loved me, and this was all just some stupid misunderstanding. But I knew better. I saw the texts. I saw her messages calling him her real soulmate, saying she felt alive when she was with him. I saw her talking about how she was planning to leave me, start fresh, and how Jake had always been her escape plan. That's when I realized she'd been lying about everything: our wedding, her pregnancy, her feelings. My head was spinning. I wanted to scream, to shout, to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. Instead, I just told her to leave. I told her I didn't want to see her again. She threw a fit, saying I was overreacting, that I was crazy and possessive, but I didn't care anymore. The woman I thought I knew was a lie. I felt numb, betrayed beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I thought I'd be angry forever, but mostly I just felt broken. How could she do this to me? How could she lie about everything, including our pregnancy, our wedding plans? It was like my whole life had been a lie. I packed her stuff, told her to get out, and watched her walk out the door with that smirk on her face, like she'd won some sick game. That night I just sat there in the dark, trying to process what had happened. The feeling of loss was overwhelming. I kept asking myself why. Why her? Why Jake? Why did I not see it coming? How was I so blind? All I knew was that I had to start rebuilding from this wreckage. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, she betrayed me in the worst way possible. And I knew from that moment on, everything in my life was going to change. I had to decide what to do next, but one thing was clear. I was never going to forgive her, never going to forget what she did. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying everything in my mind: her lies, her betrayal, the way she looked at me with that bitchy smirk after she left. It's like I suddenly saw her for who she really was, not the woman I married, but someone completely different. Someone willing to destroy everything we had built, just to satisfy her own sick needs. I never thought she'd be capable of such manipulation, especially not with my own brother. That's what hit me hardest. She'd been lying about everything, including the pregnancy. All of it was a lie. I started digging through her stuff, trying to find some answers. I found the messages on her phone, hidden, secret, explicit. She and Jake had been planning this for months. They knew exactly what they were doing, covering their tracks. I found her photos with him, her messages about how she wanted to leave everything behind and start fresh with him. It was disgusting. She'd been lying to me about the baby, about our wedding, about everything, all while she was secretly sneaking around with her own brother. I felt a mixture of disgust and rage every time I looked at those messages. I also realized she'd been lying about the pregnancy. She told me she was 6 months along, that we'd be parents soon. But I found her doctor's appointment receipts. She'd canceled or rescheduled every single one. No ultrasound, no checkups, nothing concrete. She was faking the pregnancy so I wouldn't question her, so I'd stay committed. She'd been lying about her health, her feelings, her entire life. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I confronted her again, this time in a more controlled way. I called her and told her I knew everything about the affair, the pregnancy, the lies. She got defensive, started yelling that I had no right to invade her privacy, that she was done being controlled. She even had the nerve to call me jealous and possessive, just like she did before, but I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I was beyond caring. All I wanted was the truth, and I finally got it. She never loved me, not really. She just used me, lied to me, and cheated behind my back. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, calling me crazy, saying I was hurting her, that she'd never do anything to harm us. But I knew better. I saw the evidence. Her tears meant nothing. She was just trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty so I'd take her back, but I refused. I told her she needed to leave, and if she ever tried to come back, I'd make sure she regretted it. I was furious, but also numb. I had to accept that everything I believed in was shattered. My trust was gone, maybe forever. I threw her stuff out, told her to get out of my life, and I finally blocked her on everything. That was the hardest part, cutting her out completely. It's like I'd lost a piece of myself, and I didn't even know how to start healing. What haunted me most was the realization that I'd been so blind. How could I not see she was capable of all this? How could someone I loved so much betray me in such a disgusting way, and with my own brother? It felt like I'd been stabbed by the people I trusted most in this world. For days, I just wandered around the apartment, trying to piece together what had happened, trying to make sense of the chaos. Now I'm left with this heavy feeling, this void that seems impossible to fill. The betrayal runs so deep that I question everything, my judgment, my happiness, even my worth. But I know I can't drown in this despair. I have to find a way to move on, even if some days it feels impossible. Right now, I'm just trying to survive the shock, the anger, and the heartbreak. It's a lot to process, but I know I need to get through it somehow. The hardest part after everything exploded was facing the truth that I'd been living a lie for so long. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it coming, why I didn't pick up on her lies and her sneaky behavior. It's like she was some master manipulator, convincing me she was pregnant, that she loved me, that she was done with Jake, all while secretly planning her escape route with him. I mean, she even told me she wanted a child, said she was excited to be a mom, and I was genuinely happy about it. But it was all fake, every bit of it. Her lies had been so convincing, I'd even started to doubt myself. Maybe I was too controlling, maybe I was imagining things. But now I see it clearly. She'd been acting different for months. She'd go out with her friends and come back late, always with some excuse about work or needing space. I'd notice her phone lighting up at odd hours, her changing her passwords, deleting texts. I kept brushing it off because I loved her, but deep down, I always had that nagging suspicion. And now I realize I was right all along. She was hiding something. She'd been lying to me from the start, playing me for a fool. Honestly, I felt like a fool for not trusting my instincts. I had this gut feeling she was cheating, but I suppressed it. Because I didn't want it to be true. I wanted to believe that everything was perfect, that I'd finally found my person. But she was just pretending. She was lying about her feelings, lying about the pregnancy, lying about our future. I'd invested 5 years of my life into someone who was just using me as a pawn, a cover-up for her own selfish needs. The betrayal was so raw, so intense, I had trouble functioning. I kept replaying every moment, her bitchy attitude, the lies, the fake pregnancy, the way she dismissed my concerns. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face smirking at me after she left. It was like her smile was burned into my brain. I was furious, yes, but mostly I was devastated. How could she do this to me? How could she lie about everything? I kept asking myself if I'd ever truly known her at all. But I knew I had to face reality. I couldn't keep living in denial. The truth was out now. She had been lying from the very beginning, and I'd been too blind to see it. The wedding, the pregnancy, her love, all a lie. That realization hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. Not just at her, but at myself for not seeing it sooner. I was angry at Jake for being a part of this, and even angrier at her for dragging me into her web of lies. I kept thinking about how I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd just thrown it all away for some sick affair. That thought made my blood boil. Now I'm left trying to figure out what to do next. Do I fight for the relationship? Do I forgive her? Or do I cut her out completely and walk away? Honestly, I don't even know anymore. All I know is that I can't go back to pretending everything's okay. My world has shattered and I have to rebuild from the ground up. It's a terrible feeling, knowing you loved someone so deeply, only to find out they were just using you as part of their game. But I also realize I can't keep living in the past, wallowing in anger and betrayal. I have to move forward, even if it's one step at a time, and right now I'm just trying to breathe, to accept that everything I believed in is gone. The decision to move on hasn't come easy. I've spent days just wandering around the apartment, staring at the walls, trying to piece myself together. Every corner, every piece of furniture seems to remind me of what I lost: my trust, my future, my sense of stability. I kept asking myself if I should confront her again, if I should try to get some closure or just cut her out completely. Honestly, I was torn between wanting to lash out and just disappearing into silence. Eventually, I realized that dwelling on her wasn't going to solve anything. The truth was out and I had to accept it. The only way to start healing was to accept what she did and decide how I was going to move forward. So I sat down one night, took a deep breath, and forced myself to be honest with what I truly felt. I was furious, yes, but also sad, betrayed, and somehow exhausted. It was like I'd been running a marathon I didn't even realize I was in. Now, I was finally stopping, trying to catch my breath and figure out what was next. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't let her define my life anymore. I'd get rid of everything that reminded me of her: her clothes, her stuff, the lies I'd been told. I knew I needed space to breathe and to think clearly. I also knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to start rebuilding my life piece by piece. I started planning what I'd do next, perhaps renting a new place, focusing on work, and reconnecting with friends I'd pushed aside during our relationship. It was clear that I'd been so caught up in her world that I'd lost myself in the process. Now, I had to find myself again. The hardest part was coming to terms with the fact that I'd been so blind. I kept replaying the moments I ignored the signs, the times I brushed off my doubts, the times I questioned her but chose to trust her anyway. All those little red flags added up, and now I was paying the price. But I also realized that I wasn't the only victim here. She lied, she betrayed, and she used her own brother to get what she wanted. That anger started to turn into a kind of determination. I refused to let her break me completely. I knew I had to forgive myself first, for trusting her so much, for not seeing it coming, for feeling like a fool. Forgiveness isn't easy, but I think it's necessary if I want to move on. I also realized I wasn't going to get any answers from her anymore. The only answer I needed was that I deserved better, that I'd be okay without her. So I took the first real step. I blocked her on every social media, deleted her number, and cut all communication. It was uncomfortable, knowing she was probably out there with Jake, probably laughing at how I was falling apart. But I knew that keeping her in my life in any way would only keep me stuck. Now, I just focus on me, on healing, on rebuilding my confidence, on figuring out what I want from life now that I've lost everything I thought mattered. I've learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. I've also learned that revenge isn't worth it, at least, not in the way I initially wanted. The best revenge is just living a good life without her. Moving forward, I want to prove to myself that I can be whole again, even after such a deep betrayal. It's going to take time, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare has taught me more than I ever wanted to know about trust, betrayal, and myself. I used to think love was enough to keep a relationship solid, but I see now that honesty and respect are the real foundations. Without those, everything crumbles. She lied about the pregnancy, lied about her feelings, and worst of all, she lied about who she was. Her betrayal with Jake wasn't just a fling. It was a betrayal of everything I thought we shared. That kind of pain is hard to describe. It's like your soul gets shattered into 1,000 pieces. But in the process, I learned something else. I learned that I am stronger than I ever believed. I thought I'd be broken forever, that I'd drown in sorrow and anger, but somehow I managed to pick myself up. I cut ties, I cleaned out the past, and I started focusing on myself. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand how I missed so many signs and honestly, working on forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner. I know I can't change what happened, but I can control how I respond to it. I can choose to move forward, to rebuild, and to find happiness again. Without her, without Jake, without lies. This experience has also made me realize how important it is to listen to my instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Trust isn't just about believing the best in someone. It's about protecting yourself and knowing when to walk away. I'm not naive anymore. I know not everyone is who they pretend to be, and I'll never let myself ignore the red flags again. Most importantly, I've come to accept that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Not with vengeance or anger, but with dignity. I want to prove to myself that I don't need her to be happy. I don't need her to validate my worth. I am enough. I will be okay. So, to anyone reading this who's gone through something similar, I'll say this: trust your gut. Don't be stupid like I was. Think before you believe the lies. And if you get betrayed, don't let it destroy you. Use it as a lesson, a catalyst to become stronger. Because eventually the pain will fade and what remains will be your resilience. That's what I hold on to now, my strength, my ability to stand tall after being knocked down so hard. Life's too short to let someone else's lies define you. Keep fighting, keep moving forward, and never forget, you are worth more than betrayal.